Hi, it's Dr. Jackie Taylor. We are on Chapter 2, using the class list log to look at separation and school adjustment. For today, we're going to look at some of the characteristics of a class list log and see how it's used as an observation tool. We're going to complete a class list log, and we're going to look at a reflective journal and kind of look at separation and some strategies to help children in school as they adjust. Think about all the people you saw this last weekend. So think about last weekend. And beside each of their names, write down the color shirt they were wearing. So if you take a few seconds, maybe about 20 seconds, list, if you have a spouse or your child, or, think about last Saturday and last Sunday, anybody you saw. A lot of us might not have even gone out. So even think about yourself. What color shirt did you wear on Saturday? What color shirt did you wear on Sunday? Think about your spouse or your child or anybody you saw. Okay. Now, was there a problem with that? What were the difficulties with doing that? Was it a challenge? It definitely was for me. I had no idea what I wore myself, nor do I know what my spouse wore, or I don't even remember who I saw last weekend. So that was a challenge for me. I can't remember the people. I can't remember the clothing. So would it be easier if you knew what the assignment was? I would think so. So if I said, this coming weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, I want you to make a list of everybody you see, write their names down, and write the color shirt they're wearing. So every time you see somebody, write down the color shirt they wore. Then it'd be simple. You could easily do that. Wouldn't be a problem. So that would actually be a class list log, and that would be an observation that you are doing. So that's why you write down things when you observe, because we don't remember. We can't remember from last weekend. And when we're doing our class, we often forget things. So we have to write down, and that's why it's so important in class to have observations and to write them down. So if we were in a real classroom and I asked you to go around the room and to write down everyone's name that's in the class, even if you didn't know it, you could just ask their name, and then observe how many pieces of jewelry everyone's wearing, and then record the number beside each person's name. If they were wearing a bracelet and a ring, there would be 2 pieces of jewelry. Then you would have created a class log. It's that simple. You write down everybody's first name and the number of pieces of jewelry. You could do the same thing with children. It's that simple to make a class list log. So if we were face to face, that's exactly what an exercise we would do, and that would give you practice of making a class list log. So you would have created a version of that. The class list log is a method or a format to record one or more short, important to know pieces of information about each child. It's designed to be quick and easy, and it provides information on each child in the group or in the class. The class list log criterion, or what it's going to measure, is determined in advance. So you already know what you're going to say, and it's the same for each child. So for Bobby, you don't measure the color shirt he's wearing, and for Susie, you don't measure the number of pieces of jewelry. You're measuring the same thing for every child that's in your class. You prepare a class list log, and this is in your textbook, this example, by putting the first names of the children. You oftentimes will put them in alphabetical order just because it's easier to find the children when you're looking for them. And you add the date and you add the recorder's name. That would actually be your name because you're the recorder. While the children are engaged in play, the recorder, which would be you or the teacher, uses the class list log to record information on the pre-selected skill or behavior. And sometimes you can add extra information too, but it's really short. You don't add a whole lot. This provides a natural information gathering process that can be used for intentional teaching and repeated later in the year to compare where the child is in development. For example, cutting could be observed. You could put scissors on the table with interesting papers to cut, such as gift wrapped or wallpaper samples or cuttings. And then the teacher could sit nearby with the class list log and make notes of how the children are cutting. Maybe they can cut or they cannot cut. Maybe some can cut circles, some can only cut squares. Another example would be large motor skills. Maybe you're looking at running, or maybe they can climb, or can they throw, can they jump, can they crawl. And you would set up a maze on the playground and look for those particular skills. To recap, the class list log is looking for one specific behavior or skill for all children. This page lists the advantages and the disadvantages of the class list log. One thing that I like is that it's quick and easy. What I do not like is it only provides you with limited information. Remember when you're using the class list log that you always want to date each entry, and you want to include the day and the setting, and you're going to select an observable criterion, and you write short factual notes. You can think about the things that you can measure, such as large motor skills, climbing, walking a balance beam, dribbling a ball. Small motor skills, like we said earlier, scissor cutting, writing your first name, putting together a puzzle. Language skills, reciting a nursery rhyme. Literacy, looking at a book from front to back. Math, counting. Science, placing things in sequence, sorting by size. Art, painting lines. Blocks, maybe doing types of construction. So how do you find the time to do a class list log? One thing is have the forms already made up and available with the skills on them and the children's names on them, and have them on clipboards around the room so you can just grab it up and be ready to start doing the class list log. And here's some tools that will help you manage so you can gather information on a class list log. The clipboard, like I said, with a pencil or pen attached, and have those around the room. Index cards or sticky notes, have those in your pocket. You know how you have the lab apron, you will always have a piece of paper or sticky notes or something and a pencil in there. You could be ready to jot down some notes, and then you can later on transfer those to a class list log. Mailing labels are the same way. Those can be used to transfer information on later. The date stamp. I used to use these when I was little. My grandmother had one where you changed the date and you could just stamp those down. But you could also leave those in the center and change the date every time. And when a child's working on a piece of art, you can teach the children to stamp their work so that you always have the date on their work. A tablet or smartphone comes in handy so you can type in notes and then later transfer that to the child's file. Let's talk a little bit about the observation. This is the first week that you're going to do an observation. I think you have 6 or 7 observations that you're actually going to do. And instead of going into the Child Development Center, you're going to be watching videos. And for some of you, that's a letdown. And for some of you, that's like, yay, that's good. I can do these from home. So, but you're going to watch a video this week of Joanna. She's 4 years old and her home language is Spanish. So both of her parents speak Spanish in the home. She has older siblings who speak English, so that's helpful to her. But this is her first year in preschool, and she attends a dual immersion preschool. She's playing in the dramatic play area in this video with 2 other children and the teacher. And they are playing with a stethoscope and listening to one another's hearts. Since Joanna has difficulty entering play with her peers, who primarily speak English, the teacher is facilitating Joanna's inclusion in play with the group. You have a class list log in this week's module, and it has categories of self-esteem indicators. On your class list log, you're going to watch the video, and for the 3 children that are listed, you are going to look at the categories, and for each category, you're going to write an H for high if you believe that their self-esteem is high in this area, and you're going to write an L for low to indicate if the child's self-esteem is low in this category. You may need to watch the video several times to complete the class list log. The first time you watch it, you may not get everything that you need. So don't think, gosh, I didn't get everything. I can't believe I have to watch this again. That's typical. Most students have to do that. If you need to, you can leave 1 or 2 spaces blank if you're unsure of a category. But be sure to put your name on the sheet where it says recorder, you're the recorder, and the date that you're recording. The children's names are already listed on the sheet for you, so the 3 children's names are listed on there for you. And this is in a Word document, so you can save it, and then you're going to upload it like you normally do for any of your other assignments. You're going to upload it back up there, and it will be due. You've got the due date listed on there, so you have plenty of time to work on that. So that's your observation that you're going to do. You also have a video case study that's on MindTap, so don't get those confused. There's another video that you're going to do, and it has answers that you respond to right on MindTap, and you respond to that right beside the video, and you submit it. You don't have to do a Word document or anything. You just respond to it right there in MindTap, and the answers go to me. So that's a different video. These observations are different. So let's talk a little bit about reflective journals that teachers use. This is a place for recording personal thoughts. It's like a diary, and it's private. It's not for documentation of children or to assess their development, but it's a place where teachers can think about their interactions with children, maybe for venting feelings, and more importantly for self-examination. Teachers also need to be learners, and that learning begins within, inquiring about one's own motivations, influences, molding experiences, culture, cultural biases, values, and beliefs. The reflective journal is like a mirror that's pictured here in this figure 2-5. You take a quick check into yourself to have a deep analysis. You see changes about your thinking and your attitude. You take a close examination to see if you have any prejudices. You try to make changes, see if there's any actions that you need to take in your teaching and your thoughts. It's done repeatedly. You examine yourself over and over again. the reflection becomes a memory as you examine your values, beliefs, and feelings. It's more of a life-changing experience. When you are writing your reflective journal, these are just some sample starters. This year, I hope that maybe a child would feel, as I approach this year, my life seems. So it's sort of a diary, and parents don't see this, children don't see this. It's just something that's personal and private for yourself, for you to reflect on. And when you go to 243, you will write for your supervised field, you'll write some reflective journal, although the teacher will see it, but you'll reflect a little bit on your teaching in that class. Think about things that are really important to you. How would you feel if those things were destroyed in a fire, or if they're lost, or they're stolen? I think about videos when my children were born, pictures of my children when they were really small, things like that you cannot replace. Valuable things that aren't worth a lot of money, but it's something that my parents had given me that are family heirlooms. We form attachment to objects and to other people. So we have people in our lives that are very important. You know, you wouldn't want anything to happen to your children or to your spouse or to your mother or your siblings or your nieces or nephews or your cousins, or, I mean, you have so many people in your family. So, you know, you have those attachments, and you feel, you would feel loss if something happened to those people. Well, children are the same way. Between 8 weeks and 6 months, children begin to differentiate between familiar people, and they understand, this is somebody I know, this is somebody I don't know. The child is more responsive and smiles and vocalizes more to familiar people than to unfamiliar people, and they show distress when encountering strangers and separation from familiar faces. There are implications for infants entering child care prior to 6 months old. The infant is beginning to differentiate between themselves and significant others. As the brain develops, infants may exhibit stranger anxiety. You may have heard about that in some of your other classes. And they are increasingly aware of the difference between close family and other people. The primary caregivers should be consistent people who are responsive to the infant's needs. This will minimize stress, which produces hormones that can affect growth of the brain. However, most infants who are securely attached are capable of forming a number of attachments at the same time without experiencing extreme stress. The role of the teacher is to support the infant's attachment to the family. This can be done by providing reminders of the family, like photographs, tapes of family's voice, smells. Surrounding the child during the day at the center will help maintain that attachment during the family's absence. This gives assurance to the family and the child that their bond is the primary one. The caregiver maintains that bond during the hours away from each other. Infants and toddlers maintain contact or stay near the attached person throughout the day in child care by creeping, walking, and following those important people. The child uses vocal signals, cooing, crying, and eventually words to maintain contact. Older infants and toddlers begin to anticipate the coming separation at the end of the day. This may happen when they see their coat and diaper bag being readied by the caregiver, or when they see a family member arrive. This is what is called separation anxiety. This is a normal part of development, but distressing to all involved. The family member may see it as a sign of rejection, but should be assured that it indicates the child can have a secure attachment to more than one person, and that the transition from one to another is sometimes difficult. The intensity of this stage is dependent on many factors: attachment to the family, temperament of the child, and experiences with consistent, responsive caregivers. It can be minimized by establishing goodbye rituals. Families should establish a goodbye routine such as high fives, rubbing noses, or 3 quick hugs, a ritual that is consistent every time they part. It serves as a dependable signal that leads the child to trust the family member will return, even though parting may be full of tears and anger. Every program has its own information gathering form for facts about the child from the family. The type of program, the objectives, the state regulations prescribe the type of information gathered on this form. A copy is placed in the child's portfolio for the teacher's reference. The original is kept in the program office. Families should be consulted concerning their goals for the child and their expectations of the program. This can be done in an informal conversation, a more formal interview, or a questionnaire. Building relationships with the child and the family begins before the first day of school. This can be done in a variety of ways, depending on the program, the timing, and the age of the child. One of the best ways to get to know the child in the family context is to make a home visit. Child care centers can also invite the family to bring the child to visit the center by appointment, so they receive individual attention. After hours seems to work best. A typical day's routine is reviewed from the arrival through departure. The family can take a tour of the center to see the rooms and areas the child will be using. The child can play and become familiar with the room and equipment. This is easier without the distraction of other children and the impending separation from the family. Many programs have a family-only orientation where staff is introduced, policies are reviewed, and relationships between the family and the program are established. One might think that little babies don't notice who is taking care of them, but stress of infants in child care has been measured by their cortisol level. Cortisol is a hormone released when the body is under stress. It has been found, however, that the mother spent more days adapting their children's child care, attachments remain secure without spikes in the cortisol level. That tells us that child care programs enrolling infants should encourage, if at all possible, the mother to spend several hours for several days at the center with her infant before leaving the infant with the teacher. If it is the beginning of the school year and all children are entering for the first time, a staggered first day or first week may be possible. Half or a portion of the children attending one day or one morning, with the other portion coming on a second day or in the afternoon. Each day, every child should be greeted upon arrival. The greeter or door person sets the mood for the day, letting the child know that he or she is important. The smile communicates acceptance and friendship. Greeting the child by name and commenting on an event in the day that the child will particularly enjoy helps prepare for a good day ahead. Families should be encouraged to establish a goodbye routine. Stay for a while and leave firmly. No sneaking out. This allows the child to adjust slowly and not feel rushed or rejected. The child can anticipate the family member's departure by dependable cues. Sometimes the child attempts to manipulate the family member into one more kiss, one more hug. Sneaking out is discouraged no matter how the family member sees it as the easier way. The disappearing parent undermines the child's sense of security. Families need assurance that the child will be well cared for. Study the IEP or IFSP before the child comes to class. Make sure you understand about the child's disability before he/she enters the classroom. Be prepared with modifications. Separation may be more difficult for some families of different cultures. For some, the child has never been away from the family. For others, the child is expected to be independent and any expression of separation anxiety will not be tolerated by the family. Learn a few words in the child's native language if she does not know English well. Throughout this chapter, the issues of attachment, separation, and adjustment have been discussed. During the first few years of life, attachments are formed with the primary adults in the child's life. In observing and recording infants and toddlers, a child's approaches are interpreted through behavioral cues, helping the staff gain a better understanding of the child's relationships with others and how separation and reunion plays out. The class list log on arrivals, departures, and routines will yield information to track how the child is faring in making adjustments to the out-of-home program. The reactions to the child and the family member can be observed and recorded, such as eye contact between the child and family member, following the family member to the door or reaching toward the door, sound or verbal protest on leaving, response to the receiving caregiver. If distressed, how does the child find comfort? Communication with the family about the transition from home to school is an important tool to better understand the child's cues and the way the family deals with transitions in other situations. Keeping notes on the needs of each child can help every family member. Departures are equally important as arrivals. The teacher notes the time that the family will pick up the child in order to prepare the child by gathering belongings, telling the child that it's almost time to leave, and then watching for the family member to arrive. It may also be helpful to note what the family member needs on leaving or arriving. Seeing what each family member needs and planning accordingly is part of being a responsive, respectful caregiver. Sharing information at the beginning and end of the day in the form of written notes can help everyone remain in the loop for the child.